Ibadan. Good morning, Nigeria. You are tuned in to Daybreak Live right here on Dominion Television. I am Samson Balogun.
And I am Pat Aito. Welcome to your favorite morning show where we'll bring you the news you need, the stories that matter, and a touch of inspiration to kick off your week.
Well, it's Monday morning. And yes, we know that feeling. The coffee hasn't kicked in yet. The weekend still lingers in your mind and traffic's already lining up outside.
Well, but don't worry, we got your back. And from Daybreak News to our big story and even what is trending on the socials, we have lined up a full plate to get you going.
So, grab your cup of tea or coffee or amala if you are feeling bored and let's right into it.
And here is a quick look at what we have got coming up on the show today.
In Daybreak News, we'll give you a concise update on what happened while you slept, locally, nationally, and globally.
And we'll also take you through the newspaper headlines where what the front pages are screaming about this morning.
Our newspaper analysis segment will break it all down, what's behind the headlines and what it means for you.
And do not miss our big story today. We are diving into a national debate, the proposed mandatory voting bill. Should you go to jail if you don't vote? We will unpack that.
Plus, we'll take a trip through the world of sports, goals, glory, and gossips.
And of course, Trend Watch will bring you the latest buzz from across social media and pop culture.
Now, Pat, I have to ask you. You look stunningly beautiful this
morning.
morning.
Thank you so much. You look handsome as well. Good morning.
Thank you so much. Now, talking about the mandatory voting, but then before I do that, I want to ask you, it seems you had a restful weekend. No outings.
I did actually. And I tried to do one or two things and I think it was restful. Let me just put it that way. Whatever it is that I did during the weekend, over the weekend, made me relaxed very well.
That sums it up. That sums it up. All right, talking about the mandatory voting, the question is, should an individual go to jail just because he or she decides not to vote? I think it's a right, and then a person might decide not to exercise his or her right.
Well, to me, I feel the real question, the real thing the House of Reps should do is just to ask why people are not coming out to vote, while the voter apathy. That should be the question on their minds, and not all the way around saying that, okay, if there are a fine of 100,000 naira, I guess, like once you don't vote, how would what's the data? What's going to bring the analysis to their table? Like, okay, so Samson did not vote. Samson did not vote. Okay, Samson is going to bring 100,000 naira. Pat did not vote. You're bringing 100,000 naira. Where is that money going to?
I think that's a question. And the big question now is, how does the government wants to make voting more attractive to Nigerian voters, because that is the most important thing. Most Nigerians feel like it's not important I vote. Whether I vote or not, I don't think my vote will count. So that makes them feel relaxed on election days, and then most of them will buy fuel their generators and then sit back and relax and do movie and chill at home. But the question is, if you want to make election more attractive to Nigerians, what would the government do? I think one of the most important things for them to do is to make sure that transferring their voters card from one place to the other should be a lot easier than the current setup we have. Take for example an individual who registered in Nnewi now lives in Ibadan. They most times find it difficult transferring their cards from maybe the southeast, the south, the north, central, wherever it is they used to stay, down to the southwest. Now, if you don't have your cards in Ibadan, how do you vote? Will you still be fined because you could not transfer your card from your place down to Ibadan? That's one thing. The other thing is that when you talk about transferring your cards, I think that's being said. Most of the times, people find it difficult registering for the next election, getting their voters card. They also find it difficult. The time it takes them, people don't really have the luxury of living out such time, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours to register. I feel like
it's not even living that 3 to 4 hours. It's when you get there, would you be accredited as at the time that has been scheduled for? Would the voting commence at the same time scheduled for? You know, that's when you always see that we're bringing sensitive materials and something happened, this and that, what these polling units, these do not vote, all because of there were issues over there. But the same question is there some, I mean, supporters argue it strengthens democracy. Some people say it strengthens democracy, while critics says it's infringed on the supporters, I mean, the personal, voters. I mean, people's voters' freedom. Right. So now, I feel the left, Yoruba will say, there are certain things you're supposed to, the voter apathy, why do we have it during election? That should be the question on the mind and not the other way around.
You know, till today we still have issues with mobilization on election days. You know, you realize after 8 o'clock, you still see some polling units where there's no one there. And then you begin to ask questions like who exactly has been designated to come here? Who are the people coming here? Who are the polling officers coming here? Who are the security operatives that have been assigned to come here? And then you know that there's a polling unit here, but there's no one there 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 11. There was a local government election that was conducted recently, and then you realize in some places still 10, 11, there's no one there, no election. And those people will also be expected to do accreditation, do, you know, the proper voting, count their votes, you know, fill the necessary forms, and then announce who actually won in that polling unit, all within the same time frame given to them by, you know, INEC to get it done. And the question now is, a person who actually left his or her house, maybe you live at Challenge, for example, you have come to Yagoku GRA to vote, and then as at 8, 9, 10 o'clock, no one is there, and you decide to go back home because you feel like there's nothing to do here when even electoral officials are not here. Will such person also be subjected to imprisonment or maybe 100,000 naira fine as prescribed by, you know, the recent bill, which is yet to be, you know, passed? But it's a thing that INEC should actually look into, because when you talk about electoral reforms in Nigeria, it's a good thing that we're having reforms. But is this the kind of reform an average Nigerian is looking for in the you know, from INEC? Now, if the House of Reps wants to make election, you know, more attractive to an average Nigerian, more interesting to an average Nigerian, because it should be an interesting thing, knowing fully well that you are going out there to actually vote, you know, the candidate of your choice. I think there should be an encouragement of, you know, individual candidates like that, where an individual can actually decide to be a part of the election without being a member of any political party. That will also make it more attractive.
I think when you want to vote, while they should make it attractive, like what you said, is in your manifestos, go back and check, okay, what do I promise these people? If you do it, definitely people want to come out and vote for the candidate of their choice. And perhaps where election has been rigged, do you want that same voter or the voter people that came out to vote for you will come out again when they will know that, oh, the election do not, what's it called? Their voting will not count. So if you are a candidate that you want to be fixed into this political office, go back and check your manifesto. What do you tell them? Oh, you said, yeah, there will be transparency and accountability. Now you're being voted in. Do you still have that? Some people will be voted in, and the next thing is you see them leave the arena where they were before the electorate, yes, that's the word I'm actually looking for when I was saying voters. The electorate voted you in. Some will tell you, oh, this era do not befit me again. I need to move. After moving, do they connect with you again?
The people.
You don't connect with the people again, and the people cannot even talk to you or perhaps come to your gate.
They don't have access.
They don't have access to you again. So those are the things that are killing the electorate to feel like, oh, well, our non-Shejoba, they are the one doing it. So there's nothing we can do. Our vote do not count.
Now, Nigeria has had several electoral reforms in recent years. And then one thing I noticed is that the name has changed over time. There used to be FEC, down to FEDECO, down to NEC, now to INEC. You know, the name has changed per time. But then the question is, over time, has there been any form of significant change when it comes to electoral reforms in Nigeria? Is it just about the name? Because it's one thing to change the name. More or less like maybe you change the label, the content, is it still the same or it has changed?
Or is it the same old wine in the fresh bottle?
That's the point. But then at this point, I think Nigerians should look beyond the names. Many a times when there has been an announcement or there is a bill that says there's going to be a reform in a particular area, you realize that Nigerians are relaxed when they realize the name has been changed. But then what goes on in that particular, MDA, parastatal, whichever one we're talking about per time, has it changed? Is there a new modus operandi in that particular place? Mode of operation, has it changed?
It's still the same?
Is it still the same? These are questions an average Nigerian should continue to ask. Take, for example, when INEC was established in the year 1998 by General Abdulsalami Abubakar's military regime following the dissolution of the National Electoral Commission of Nigeria. And the first major task was to conduct the 1999 general elections, which returned Nigeria to democracy under the Fourth Republic. That was a landmark achievement by the General Abubakar. It's nice, but then when you look at the mode of operation then, and when in the year 1999, you realize there hasn't been too many changes. But if an average Nigerian sees that, they realize, oh, there is a change. But then what's changed? How does the change that has been effected affect you as an average Nigerian? Then these are questions we should continue to ask over time, over and over again.
Well, my hold is this. If you want to emulate other countries, I mean, I think I get to know Australia. I think they practice such. Are your people, electorate, are they in a conducive environment to do that? You can't compare Australia with Nigeria. So there are a lot of questions. I will still go back to the real question here is, well, why the voter apathy and not you imposing fines or penalties on any electorate that do not vote on election date?
If you ask me, I would say an average Nigerian should be able to vote from anywhere, anytime. But then, do we have the resources? Do we have the zeal, the political will to get it done in Nigeria? Don't forget, when you talk about electoral reforms in Nigeria, there are also scenarios and situations where we have had issues like that. Okay, so the Electoral Act 2002, also 2006, 2010. These are things that happened, and also in 2022 the Electoral Act were updated and improved transparency, independence and the integrity of the process. Electoral Act 2022 introduced key innovations like the electronic transmission of results, the bimodal voter accreditation system, which is the BVAS, early primaries and timeliness, legal backing for INEC to review declared results. These are things an average Nigerian wants. But then, having done that in the year 2022, has it had any effect? Don't forget the last election, we had issues like, oh, the internet service was bad, and then we could not transmit electronically, yes. So we had to go back to the manual way of doing things. When will we be able to move from analog to digital in Nigeria? Fully. I'm not saying in some cases you do digital, in some cases you do analog. But then, if we are going to do that fully in Nigeria, when? These are questions an average Nigerian wants to ask. I want to be in my house and just cast my vote, and I know so
That
well
it will
that it will count.
count.
An average Nigerian who is abroad can easily cast his or her vote and say,
I
well,
thought that should be the one. That is what they are supposed
to focus on. You know, we have so many Nigerians in prison right now. If in Nigeria, they should be there and be able to cast their vote and know that yes, we have also contributed our quota as in Nigeria. That is what I think INEC should be looking at. It's not about forcing people to vote. It's about making it enticing. You must have a reason to come and vote.
Okay, see, let me go back to this now. We journalists, you are on your
electoral duty.
Electoral duty, and you
also want to.
You want to vote. How is that possible?
Yeah, you registered to vote in Ibadan, and you have been seconded to monitor election in Osun or Ekiti. And then, how do you get to vote? Will a reporter in such situation?
They need to put into consideration before coming out to tell us, oh yes, we want to second this, we want to amend this, you want to do this. No, that penalty, I think people are actually...
The 100,000 naira penalty, and the likelihood of ending up in jail just because a Nigerian did not vote, I think for me,
minimum wage is how much now?
70,000.
70,000.
So an average Nigerian should pay 100,000 for no voting, just once in a year. I think that is outrageous. That, for me, is a way of putting more Nigerians in a very tight corner. Because imagine some people who have to travel just because they want to vote. I've seen people from northern Nigeria, you know, when it is election time.
Not in this era of fuel subsidy.
Fuel subsidy. There used to be, they will travel in mass just because they want to vote.
They want to vote.
And recently, you realize that the number actually, it has dropped. And the continuous reduction in the number of northerners who actually travel back home just to vote also puts INEC in a very tight corner, one way or the other, telling them, look, the economic situation in the country is not even
favorable.
So if that is the case, it means that you can't expect a person to go out of their way. Once an average Nigerian that has not even survived in his own place, and you expect them to go back to where they come from to cast their votes just because they could not transfer their cards down here, that's a problem. And INEC should look into that. It's not about forcing Nigerians to vote. It's about making voting.
It's their right.
It's their right, actually.
Fundamental
and I know an average Nigerian knows that it is their right to cast votes. So in this case, make it enticing, make it attractive. Make them understand that if you vote, your vote will count.
And whatever manifestos I've made or I've done, definitely you'll see it.
All right, that takes us away from this segment of the show this morning. The show is still Daybreak Live on Dominion Television, your channel of choice, where inspiration meets entertainment. Don't forget, you can be a part of the conversation by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Drop your comment there at Dominion Broadcast. You can also watch us live on our website, www.dominion.org.ng, dominion.org.ng, and do well to link up with us on all other social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast, and on X, formerly Twitter, at Dominion Cast. Let's go on a short break. When we return, Pat Aito has got a lot of updates for us on our news desk. We'll be back after this time out.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to Daybreak News on Dominion Television. I am Pat Aito. President Bola Tinubu has exchanged one pleasantry with Pope Leo XIV during the official mass marking inauguration of the new pontificate in Vatican City. President Tinubu shook hands with the Pope and had a brief conversation with him before moving away. Tinubu joined world leaders, diplomats, and religious dignitaries in Rome to witness the formal installation of the new head of the Catholic Church, becoming the 2067th leader of the Roman Catholic Church. The federal government has revealed plans to unveil the African Energy Bank as preparations for its official launch enter the final phase. This was disclosed during a high-level review meeting which was held in Abuja and hosted by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil, Heineken Lokpobere, with the President of the African Export-Import Bank, Professor Benedict Orama, and the Secretary General of the African Petroleum Producers Organization, Umar Farouk Ibrahim, in attendance. The meeting assessed progress on bank's establishment with conclusion of legal and governance frameworks, also confirming that critical milestones had been completed. The Minister of Art, Culture and Creative Economy, Ananatu Musawa, has said that the country attracted a $300 million investment commitment in the creative sector. Musawa disclosed these at the 2025 ministerial briefing in Abuja. According to her, the government has targeted at least 2 million jobs in the creativity industry, also noting that President Bola Tinubu plans to unveil creative hubs across the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria in the coming months. The Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, has appealed to communities hosting transmission infrastructure to help curb the vandalism of power towers. The TCN's Port Harcourt Region Manager, Akpan Ayana Gbegunam, made the appeal during a sensitization program for the youth from Ahoda East and Ahoda West in Rivers State. He emphasized that the vandalism of power infrastructure presented a significant setback not only to the affected communities, but also to Nigeria's overall socio-economic development. The Chief Judge of the Federal High Court of Nigeria, Justice John Toso, has replaced Justice Inyang Adam Eko of the Abuja Division of the Court, who was suspended for 1 year by the National Judicial Council, NJC. Justice Eko's court has been taken over by Justice M.G. Umar, who was moved from Enugu Judicial Division to Abuja. Similarly, 4 other judges have been redeployed from their current divisions to other divisions. Operatives of the Ondo State Police Command have rescued a kidnapped victim, Samuel Oguniyi, and arrested at least 4 suspected kidnappers across the state. The State Police Commissioner Wilfred Afolabi made this known while briefing newsmen on the command's recent achievement in Akure, the state capital. According to him, 8 other people were arrested for armed robbery, coercion, and stealing. Away from Ondo State to Taraba State, where Dr. Agbu Kefas has directed the recertification of all certificates of occupancy (COOs) across the state. This was disclosed in a statement issued by the Director General of Taraba Geographic Information System, Dr. Joshua Marco Mark. The initiative, according to the governor, is part of the government's effort to ensure that all lands documents are current and comply with updated regulations, also noting that the exercise will run for a period of 6 months. And in business, the federal government has revealed that 33 states and the Federal Capital Territory (FCT) have reduced their debt profiles, having repaid about 1.8 trillion naira in domestic debt between June 2023 and December 2024. This was contained in a weekly publication of the National Orientation Agency (NOA). The NOA further disclosed that the 36 states governments and the FCT had accumulated a domestic debt stock of 1.6 trillion naira as of December 2014, and by the end of 2015, their domestic debt profiles had risen to 2.5 trillion naira. On his loan that you can visit our website on www.dominion.org.ng to watch us live and interact with us. You can also follow us across our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn at Dominion Broadcast, and X at Dominion Cast. And that was the Daybreak News. Thank you so much for watching. I am Pat Aito. Good morning once again, and welcome to Headlines and Analysis on Daybreak Live on Dominion Television here in Iagoko in Ibadan. I am Pat Aito. Always know that we're always here to keep you abreast of what is happening or what has happened in our country, Nigeria. So headline and analysis is where we'll break down today's top stories and what they mean for you. Well, very soon, our analyst will join us on the program. Well, let me begin with Nigerian Tribune, where we have this big banner saying, at Pope Leo's inauguration, Tinubu says Nigeria's unity in diversity, work in progress, meets Obi and the former governor of Ekiti State, that's Fayemi. And still from the Nigerian Tribune, we have, despite positive macro environment, inflation still a threat to economic stability, growth, LCCI warns. And that's on page 6 of the paper. And page 6, still page 6 of the paper, we have this: over 4 trillion naira debt. AMACON, AMPS, sets up strategy to intensify recovery effort. And still from the same paper, we have this: Kwara governor sympathizes with families of 27 victims lost in boat tragedy. We commiserate with the families of the lost ones. And of course, that's on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. And on page 24 of the Nigerian Tribune, we have insurgency. Borno governor goes spiritual, declares statewide fasting and prayers. Well, it's needed, and that's Governor of Borno saying and doing that. And still from the Nigerian Tribune, we have those kidnappers killed APC world chairman in Ondo after collecting 5 million naira ransom. Page 30 of the Tribune. And away from that to page 5 of the Tribune, I guess, we have this impact of slowing inflation. CBN's MPC faces fresh tax ask as 90.5% of Nigeria's currency circulate outside banks. And lastly, from the Nigerian Tribune, we have this, before we'll go to this day, we have why Nigerian aviation sector's growth retards, coming from the experts. Page 5, you can read more on that. And away from the Nigerian Tribune, we'll flip to this day. This day with the big banner coming with Tinubu meets Pope Leo XIV, stresses importance of peace and tolerance. That's a big banner from This Day newspaper. And we have this: Lokobiri, $5 billion African Energy Bank in final stage before kickoff. And with the rider, Orama Ibrahim inspect new headquarters in Abuja. That's that. And we have this again on this day: do not let matter fall. Zulu begs federal government. Rider spend nights coordinating security logistics. This day has that. Away from that, we have Pope welcomes Tinubu to his installation ceremony. You have that picture there where our president is shaking hands with the new Pope. And we love the spirit, we love when love of sport unites frenemies. Well, friend and enemies that come together when it comes to sport. Yes, that is it. And underneath we have Saraki: Buhari harassed, intimidated me because I oppose uncurbed borrowing. That's on page 33 of This Day. Oh, well, that's all we have on This Day newspaper. Let's flip to Blueprint. And Blueprint is coming with this. Big one, no candidates with capacity to match Tinubu in 2027. That's coming from Yakasai. Riders says North has nothing against him. It's going to be landslide victory for Asiwaju, APC, DSP, and Northwest faring better under Mr. President. Uba Sani, that's Kaduna State's governor, saying that. And still from the blueprint, we have SANU, and SANU rejects sharing formula for 50 billion naira varsities fund. That's on blueprint as well. And we have this, Tinubu meets with Peter Obi Fayemi at the Vatican, and with the rider, why Pope chose President Ojukwu. Somebody is talking because I saw the picture where I was saying Bianca, and I was like, why Bianca? So now they said president had a reason for doing that. Still on blueprint, we have this. NOA commends Kwara for erecting West Africa's tallest flagpole. And that's on page 10 of the blueprint. We have NDLEA, that's beneath the blueprint newspaper. We have NDLEA intercept AK-47 concealed in maize sack, sees tramadol in Taraba. And of course, kidnapper killed on Joe APC chieftain after collecting 5 million naira ransom. And away from that, 7 months after 200 lost their lives, 37 die in fresh Kwara boat accident. Wow, may the soul rest in perfect peace. And let me quickly take this one before we flip to Daily Trust. We have this: China to establish electric air plant in Nigeria. Oh, car plant in Nigeria, air plant in Nigeria. Yes, that's what I'm saying there. China to establish electric car plant in Nigeria. That's on blueprint of the. That's on blueprint this morning. And away from blueprint, we'll go to Daily Trust, where we have this big banner as well: automatic ticket contract fueling defections to APC. That's on Daily Trust newspaper. And we have Boko Haram killed 90 farmers in Borno in 5 months. So sad. That's I wonder what could have been happening ever since. And saying this now, food insecurity alarming. Well, away from that, we have this: opposition kicks as Northwest APC endorses Tinubu for second term, and 37 persons die in Kwara boat accident. This beneath the Daily Trust, we have this: bandits kill 49 in Katsina, Kebbi, Borno. And underneath, below Daily Trust, we have wanted kidnapper arrested at Abuja Hajj camp preparing for pilgrimage. That's serious. Wanted kidnapper arrested at Abuja Hajj camp preparing for pilgrimage. What does it want to go through there? To pray? After all the atrocities committed to other fellow human beings. Well, we have this as well: Tinubu meets bishops in Rome, urges unity in diversity. And lastly, from Daily Trust, before we go to New Telegraph, we have FCTA officials fingered in green arrows disappearance. Well, that's all from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, as we'll drive down to New Telegraph. A New Telegraph coming with this big banner: FCCPC's frivolous fines will trigger more multinationals exit. OPS is saying that, and that's what the rider says: penalties hitting revenue projections. That's on page 3 of the New Telegraph. And also we have this: Tinubu meets Pope Leo 14 after inaugural mass in Vatican. With 2 riders there, or 3 riders there, and you can read more at page 2 and 3 of the New Telegraph. We have this as well from the New Telegraph. Reports: Nigeria's FX, that's foreign exchange inflows, up 49% to $2.48 billion in 2 months. Away from that economic story, we have the Zulum resident fast pray over renewed attacks. Bandit murder 15 farmers in Kebbi. And that's on page 3 and 5 of the New Telegraph. And Tanko Yokasai have not seen anything that will stop Tinubu's re-election. Page 2, that's politics here. And away from the Middle Belt, Northwest, IPOB issues are social conflicts can be won on battlefield. Yusuf saying that, and that's on page 10 and 11 of the New Telegraph. We have this from International Story. Former President Joe Biden diagnosed with prostate cancer. That's on page 7 of the New Telegraph. And we have this. Nigerian televangelist Timothy Osho deported from South Africa. And we have this. Varsity workers reject sharing formula for federal government approved 50 billion naira. Well, away from that's away from New Telegraph to Business Day. Business Day, manufacturers' energy cost jumps 44 times amid factory shut down. That's a big one here. What will happen to our economy if our manufacturers' energy costs, as our manufacturer energy costs jump up to 44 times a main factory shutdown? Well, and that's telling us that inflation has reduced to what? If it has actually reduced, we are supposed to see that the effect on the masses and especially the manufacturers as well. We have telecoms bet on IPOs to catch fintechs mobile money raise, and we have this. Analysts predict rate hold as MPS convenes today. That's on Business Day newspaper, and we have lots more. But then always know that we give you the best on this channel. That's Dominion Television here in Ibadan. And that's the newspaper headlines for today. But of course, we'll be back after this break to give you analysis of what the papers are actually saying. We'll be right back. It's still Dominion Television here in Ibadan. back. It's still Daybreak Live on Dominion Television. I hope you're enjoying every bit of the program lined up for you this morning. Of course, we just finished with the headlines from various newspaper, but now we'll go into the analysis where we are being joined by Mr. Folabi of Folami. How are you this morning, sir?
Good morning. It's good to be here again.
Well, thank you so much for
thank you for having me
program. So let's begin with the Nigerian Tribune. Okay. There's a big banner there where it says Tinubu says Nigeria's unity is in diversity. Work in progress. Meet Obi and fire me. What? That's
news that when it's flashed around the afternoon yesterday. It tells Nigerians that look, politicians are always friends. No matter how you look at it, it's not about party. It's not about the person. It's about their personal. You know, politics in Nigeria is about interest. Okay. It is where they have their interest in. And people were so much surprised to see the president at the inauguration of the new Catholic head and the Pope. That is yesterday. And the meeting with him was Fayemi and Obi. And that tells you that yes, we may be in disagreement within our parties, but we are still Nigeria, and that was why the president could say Nigeria unity is in diversity.
Well, that's not where I'm actually going. Well, it's a normal thing that we'll see them come together irrespective of their party affiliation. But now, how does Tinubu's statement reflect current challenges in Nigeria national unity? Well,
the president should be working on how to bring the country united. I mean, again, bring us together in respect of our political diversification or interest, like I have said earlier on. And like presently, the unity of Nigeria is at stake. If we continue the way we are right now, if we continue the way we nominate and select our political appointees, if we continue the way we bring out our ideas, if we continue the way the insecurity is, if we continue the way the tension in the society is right now, you know, it has cut across all sectors. So I think the president, talk is cheap. You should do more to bring out the action.
Well, still on that, what is it called? The big banner. We have this, like what I said, another question for you. How does Tinubu's presence at the religious leader inauguration reflect Nigeria's approach to religion and politics?
Well, it has been politicalized already, and I don't see anything new in that. As a sitting president, his invitation.
You don't see anything new in that. How?
No, his invitation is normal. Is presumed by the people who invited him, and then some people have taken it beyond what we should, because I expect that his invitation is. It has not. The question like you asked, how does it add to the table of an ordinary Nigerian person? I'm yet to see that, because that invitation was just to celebrate the new Pope, and that invitation is not bringing in investment. That invitation is not cutting away our debt.
You can't just jump to that conclusion that it's not bringing any investment, because remember that there were closed-door meetings between the Pope and our president.
And that closed-door meeting means that the Pope will be putting up more churches or more aids to Nigeria. Let's wait and see. We are not blind to all that is going on, and we can see what is already in the making. So let's wait and see.
We'll wait and see. Well, away from that, we have this impact of slowing inflations. We have CBN MPC faces fresh tax as over 90.5% of Nigeria's currency circulate outside the banks.
This is another big problem that we have been facing even before the coming of this president. And these are part of the promises he has given us that he will look into, and we are in the second year already. We are in the second this May, inauguration. We are in the second year already. After May 27 now, we'll be entering into the third year.
I don't you think it's a work in progress?
Work in progress, my sister. That statement hurt me a lot. So tell me working. That was what happened when you take that this outside problem is in the pipeline, and they have to go down there and bust out the pipeline. Maybe what's in progress? If we have enough facilities, enough capacity to make things happen, except we don't have the willpower. That is the problem we are facing. I expect that at this stage, Nigeria is 65 by this year. And if we are still talking about work in progress, then I want to go back and get to know more about the definition of work in progress. Work in progress.
But it took a country
Oh.
100 years before they could get to where they
My
are.
sister, we are opportune to have not worked in those countries 100 years. We are working in a digital time. Those countries have worked in the Stone Age, where things were not, they're not in the global world. They couldn't have seen what other countries are seeing, or what other countries are doing, or how they can put up other opportunities within and outside their shores. We are already working in the digital line, at which we can, even sitting down here, as we are talking right now, every person there is looking at us, and we can as well get to know what is happening outside our country. So we don't have those, we don't work in that line, and I will not subscribe to that.
Well, I will. The last headline I will need to pick from the Nigerian Tribune here, I will align it with this one I just read. Is still talking about inflation, where despite positive macro environment, inflation still a threat to economic stability growth, LCCI warns.
Yes, yes, it is. It's a threat because we can see it, and a lot of things are happening in our market space, and we start to ask ourselves, are we moving backward or we are moving forward? And the inflation is too much that is biting harder. Of recent, our former president talked about the rate at which poverty is biting, and he gave an illustration of somebody who has a car, who can refer to himself as poor, and somebody who is working, trekking down to his house or his office, who can also refer to himself as poor. And of recent, our president has the government has also come out to define the poorest of the poor. So if some people are poor and we have the poorest of the poor, so it tells you that there are grades in these categories of the poor setup. So that tells you that the distance between those who are rich and the poor is just like you talking about something traveling from Abuja, or let's say from Borno to Lagos. So that is just it. We are waiting to see what the president has promised Nigeria. And that was what I will be sending out to him as a second-year anniversary of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Please bring out these promises. Bring out these promises to make the less privileged breathe. You have promised that let the poor rich, let the poor breathe. We are yet to breathe. The people go on the street. This morning I was coming down here. I can see the tense on the people's face, the Okada riders, the people who are struggling to go to their place of work. You can see that this man may not actually have a sound sleep while living this morning.
All
so
right.
It's not yet over.
All right, Mr. Folami, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, this wraps up this edition of Headlines and Analysis for today, and we have Mr. Folami has been talking to us about it, and of course, join us tomorrow for another fresh edition of the Headlines and Analysis on Dominion Television. Thank you so much for watching. More programs coming your way.
It is time for the big story, where we dig into issues that shape our nation. Today we are turning the spotlight on a proposal that's stirring up serious debate across the country, the mandatory voting bill. Should Nigerians be legally required to vote? Is it a step towards greater civic responsibility or an infringement on personal freedom? We'll be unpacking the pros, the cons, and everything in between. Stay with us. The show is still Daybreak Live on Dominion Television. We'll bring you major stories that are happening within and outside the country, Nigeria. And of course, on the big story today, I have with me in the studio to be doing justice to this particular headline, Isiaka Gbadamosi, who is a public affairs analyst, a PR consultant, a politician, and an SDG advocate. Good morning to you, Isiaka.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. I'm hearing you loud and clear. Thank you for having me.
All right, sir. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you.
All right. There is this particular story which has actually trended for the last few days, which is the mandatory voting bill. Talking about electoral reforms in Nigeria, because this is a part of the electoral reform we are looking out for in Nigeria. There has been a lot of electoral reforms, talking about how it has evolved from names, talking about a Federal Electoral Council, talking about the FEDECO down to NEC, National Electoral Council, up till now that we have INEC. And these are dated. But especially the establishment of INEC, which was established in the year 1998 by General Abdulsalami Abubakar's military regime, following the dissolution of the National Electoral Commission of Nigeria, which is NECON. First major task was to conduct the 1999 general elections, which returned Nigeria's democracy under the Fourth Republic. Now, we are talking about reforms in the Electoral Act, and the bill is actually there. But should an average Nigerian be forced to vote? Should an average Nigerian be on the verge of going to jail just because he did not vote? Or should an average Nigerian be charged more than the minimum wage, which is 100,000 naira, as opposing to the 70,000 naira minimum wage, just because he or she failed to vote?
Okay, thank you very much. The issue of this bill is an interesting one, and let's not make any mistake about the fact that our electoral system requires a continuous tinkering. We need to continuously look at the law, fine-tune it, and make it better by the day. But for me, I think this aspect of having people mandatorily compelled by the law to vote for a person, for any individual in a state to decide to vote from his civic duty and responsibility as a citizen. And if such a person decides also not to vote, it also shows or reflects the lack of confidence of that person. Nigerian citizen is expressing his fundamental right, whether he's comfortable or happy or is okay with the system of voting or not. So to now have a law that compels Nigerians to say you must vote or go to jail, that in itself is anti-democratic. It doesn't allow Nigerians to express themselves. It doesn't allow Nigerians to express dissent in terms of whether they are happy with the procedure and process of election, whether they are happy with even the political party, or whether we are happy with who are proposing this law, or to look at the bigger picture. of the fact that the individual is expressing this discomfort or non-approval of the procedure.
All right, let's talk about the potential problem which INEC, even Nigerians, might face. That's talking about uninformed voting. Compulsory voting might result in random or uninformed choices, leading to the election of undeserving candidates due to lack of voter interest or understanding. If the government proceeds by making sure that every Nigerian is compelled to vote, don't you think this might eventually bring into offices Nigerians who are undeserving of these positions?
Well, the thing is this. In the first instance, I've said that it is undemocratic for any law to compel Nigerians to vote or not. That is the first thing. And if that is the case, to now have somebody compelled to vote or not to vote, whoever you position becomes illegitimate as far as I'm concerned, because the process through which the election took place, the process through which that process secures the mandate is reflective of the fact that such a voter was compelled, and you don't where people decide to boycott election. Is it right to do that? It's so there should be law in the forces.
Right. I think
let me give you a very interesting example of this scenario.
Okay.
In the last election, you had a voter registration, those who participate voting population. Now, the question you ask is, are you or 60 million Nigerians in jail or about implementing such a law? The law is not possible. It's not likely that you can implement it. One, two, it is anti-democratic.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this question. Yes, I am with you. Let me ask you this question. Okay. If it is anti-democratic, and you know or you think it is not feasible for the government to send 60 million Nigerians to jail just because they did not vote, I think the question now is, what should the government be doing instead of this particular bill they are about to visit?
Oh, thank you very much. I think that is the question in itself. And that's, I think, what the House of Rep and the Senate should be looking at. What were the flaws we recorded in the last election? And I've asked these questions. Most of the people that are informed, that have informed opinion about voting, are left out of the electioneering process during elections. What do I mean? You have people who are said to be on essential duties, such as the military personnel, such as the police, such as the INEC officials, such as the journalists, such as medical staffs and those in the hospitals, and so many other ones who are said to be on essential duty. Most of them are disenfranchised most of the time. And you cannot have, and these are people who have informed opinion about who to vote for and not to vote for. So I think we should be looking at how do we integrate a voting system that would allow such people to ensure that they vote, whether before the day of the election or on the day of the election itself. There must be a mechanism. Then you must also look at the voting procedure in terms of in terms of the transparency. What we had in the last time, where we had a glitch with the INEC system. How do we perfect that system to ensure that such glitch does not occur in future? We also need to look at our political party structure. Our political party So are they throwing up the right candidate for elections? If they are not, like we have seen.
Okay,
How do we make sure that we streamline the political party system such that they throw up candidates all over the place, carpet crossing, or do we do? How do we have a law to make it criminal for anybody?
Looks like the network is not that friendly on the other hand. Okay, still talking about electoral reforms in Nigeria, the adoption of technology has not really helped in one way or the other in recent times. Because when you look at the current situation of things, oftentimes INEC have decided to actually transmit electronically. But the issue has been the internet service providers. Many a times you realize that in one case or the other, they have not been able to transmit electronically. And how does INEC intend to put an end to this and then put Nigeria in the space Nigeria actually belongs? The question is, do we have the electoral will to get things done? Let's link up again with my guest this morning. Let's see what's happening on the other end. Okay, now let me ask you this question very, very briefly. Talking about the adoption of electronic accreditation, talking about the bimodal BVAS, and of course, talking about the electronic transmission of the electoral results. So far, how has it helped INEC in making sure that every Nigerian gets to vote? Don't forget, in some places in the country, it is no news that they do not have access to internet. How do they get to vote? Are they also going to be sanctioned, sent to prison, or fined 100,000 naira each for not voting?
Okay. Well, I know that our internet penetration is still having some difficulty, yes, but we can say to a great extent that we have 75% of the country. And I think if we have that, that should do and help us. The whole idea of having real-time, the whole idea of having electronic voting or electronic transmission of results is to have real-time, on-the-spot assessment of what is happening at the polling station, the polling booth, and collation center. So I think what we need to do is to continue to upgrade our electoral system in terms of how INEC facilitates this process, in terms of the kind of technology INEC is to deploy, in terms of providing the enabling laws to help INEC to be able to look at what are the challenges we had the last time and why those glitches occurred, and how we are able to mitigate such a thing in future. I think these are the areas we should look at, because the issue of, I also missed out something when I was speaking earlier about some of the things that we'll be looking at in terms of the law. The voters register in itself needs to be cleaned up. On the voters register as it stands today, there are a lot of people who maybe have passed on or maybe are no longer in the same location they used to be, who have moved to other locations and all of that. There's a need for us to update the voters register. There's a need for us to also create a seamless procedure for voters to, the process we have today whereby you have people going to queue for days and maybe getting in the process into authentication with other people is not acceptable. I think we should do better than that and redesign the process. I think if we're able to do some of these things, this will help us much more than having situations whereby we are making laws to start prosecuting Nigerians and fining them for not voting.
All right, let me take you through this very quickly before we go. The OI's Electoral Reform Committee of 2007, set up by President Umar Musa Yar'Adua after the flawed 2007 elections, they had recommendations then. INEC independence through funding from Consolidated Revenue Fund, establishment of an Electoral Offences Commission, also transparent appointment of INEC chairman, and lastly, proportional representation. Now, let me ask you this question. Talking about the establishment of an Electoral Offences Commission, over the past few years, since 2007/2008, we have seen police officers, NSCD officers arresting electoral offenders during the election. And the question is, are they being prosecuted? If so, will they be able to do same for millions of Nigerians who might end up being offenders if this bill turns to an act?
Oh, well, you see, the Waste Commission is something, commission report is something that the lawmakers need to dust up and work on. I have always been an advocate of unbundling INEC. INEC for me is too complex. There are too many things we are asking INEC to do. We are asking INEC to prosecute electoral offenders. We are asking INEC to conduct elections. We are asking INEC to go to prosecute, to go to defend the election in court and maybe present data and all of that. We are asking INEC to voter register. So there are too many things INEC, we are asking INEC also to supervise the party, political parties, and to ensure that there is internal party democracy. So INEC is saddled with too many things that they cannot live up to. And if you observe, you see that most of the electoral offenders that were arrested are let go scot-free. Most of them are not prosecuted. So for me, I think it's time we start unbundling INEC so that you have a body that will be set up to monitor political parties and regulate the activities of political parties. We should have an electoral offense tribunal or body that should also be able to prosecute electoral offenders from time to time. And we should take all of this responsibility out of INEC so INEC can face the responsibility of conducting a free and fair election. Because for me, it is not visible for us to have the situation we have now, that INEC will have to do all of these things, and at the end of the day, at the end of not be able to do it all. So I think we need to unbundle this as quickly as possible, and that is the area the legislative arm of Nigeria should be looked at. All
right, thank you, Isiaka Gbadamosi, for joining us in the studio this morning. Isiaka Gbadamosi is a public affairs analyst, a PR consultant, politician, and SDG advocate. Thank you for being a part of the show this morning. All right, and that wraps up the big story for today. The conversation around mandatory voting is far from over. And as always, it is up to us as citizens to stay informed, stay engaged, and shape the future we want to see. Thanks for being part of this discussion. Up next is Daybreak Sports. So don't go nowhere. Daybreak Live continues in a moment.
Hello, and many thanks for joining us on Daybreak Sport this lovely morning. I'm Boluwaji Ogumola. It was indeed a very eventful weekend of sporting activities across the globe, starting from Nigeria here. We had the Sport Festival yesterday, where the Vice President of the Federation, that's Kashim Shettima, yesterday declared open the 22nd edition of the National Sport Festival in Abeokuta, Ogun State. To be precise, at the MKO Abiola Stadium. Let me inform you that about 15,000 athletes from across the country are currently in Abeokuta for the Nigerian version of the Olympic Games. And there you have it on your screen. And of course, all of the beauty of culture and entertainment was on display yesterday during the Sport Festival opening ceremony. Let me inform you that Asha, of course, did perform, and of course, 001, and I was talking about the video, was also right there to entertain the crowd. Let me inform that Team Oyo were also in their glory yesterday. And after that particular one, or let me say before the commencement of the opening ceremony, Team Oyo won the first medals at the competition, with Tobiloba Ishola winning silver and bronze medals respectively in the weightlifting event. Today, Nigeria, Team Oyo, we're expected to pick up a few more medals, as our own Rafiat Lawal, captain of Team Oyo at the games, will be participating in our own weightlifting category. And of course, our own Annabelle Enahoro is obviously in Abeokuta, and of course she'll be feeding us, giving us updates from Abeokuta on our subsequent sport bulletin. Now, away from the Sport Festival this morning, let's talk about Nigerian National League, the second tier of Nigerian League football. They call it the most important league in Nigeria. All right, let's take a look at it. Matches were played at the weekend. Interesting games, I must tell you. Osun United win against Madiba FC. But like I used to say most of the time, the one that concerns us the most here in Oyo State is Cry FC of Ogbomoso. They played 1-1 in Uyo against Dakada Football Club. And their rival, Smart City, played out a 1-1 draw against Warri Wolves at home. Let's take a look at what the table looks like. Let me inform you that it's ended already in Group C, Conference C, and Conference D, as the top two teams are in Conference D, C, and D have already booked a place in the season-ending Super 8. Talking about the top two in C, and of course the top two in D. The league is concluded in the two conferences. Now, let me inform you that Conference A and B, we have to wait till the conclusion of that one. Well, Warri will still top the pack in Conference A, followed by Smart City Football Club and Crown FC. The battle for the second ticket in Conference A is between Smart City and Crown FC, and we wish our own Ogbomoso-based team, Crown FC, all the very best in that battle for the second ticket in Conference A. Conference B also not concluded yet. Kun Khalifa, Osun United and Sporting Lagos, and of course Rovers FC, all in the mix and fighting it out to also pick up the ticket there. Well, Crown FC won't be playing this coming weekend because they've been drawn by. Away from the Nigerian National League, let's talk about female football this morning, as Bayelsa Queens over the weekend emerged champion of the Nigerian Women Football League following their victorious outing at the season-ending Super 6. Let's take a look at how the table ended after a week-long activity in Ekene. Bayelsa Queens finished tops with 10 points. They played 5 matches, won 3, drew 1, and suffered just 1 defeat. For Nasarawa Amazons, yes, and this is quite funny. Nasarawa Amazons played 9, of course, have 9 points. They played 5 matches as well, won 2, settled for 3 draws, and they did not lose. Despite not losing, they still did not win the league. And that's the situation right there. Edo Queens have finished third, Rivers Angels, Remo Stars Ladies, and of course Nigeria as well. Let me inform that Bayelsa Queens will represent Nigeria in the CAF Women's Champions League, starting with the qualifiers later on in August. Away from Nigerian Women Football League this morning, let's move on the show and talk about the CAF Confederations Cup, where we had the first leg finals played at the weekend. And there you have it on your screen. RS Berkane securing a 2-0 victory over Simba FC in the first leg of the CAF Confederations Cup. And the return leg will be played in Tanzania in the coming weekend, and we'll see who eventually come out tops as far as the CAF Confederations Cup is concerned. Well, away from club football, let's talk the under-20 AFCON, where it ended at the weekend, yesterday to be precise, as the Flying Eagles of Nigeria finished as the third best team at the under-20 Africa Cup of Nations, following their 4-1 penalty shootout victory over host Egypt. Regulation time ended 1-1, and of course Nigeria finishing with the bronze medal in that particular under-20 competition. Don't forget that they already picked up a ticket to the World Cup in Chile. Now let's talk about the finals that was played later in the day. South Africa emerged champions of the under-20 AFCON this year, following their 1-0 victory over Morocco to win the tournament. Congratulations to the South Africans. I must say that they've developed so much when it comes to football. Kudos to them. Age group competition, club competition, they are indeed dominating Africa. Well, away from football, let's check out other sport this morning. Of course, we're heading straight to Imola, where we had the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at the weekend. And of course, it was Max Verstappen who was fastest ahead of McLaren duo of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Well, there's no doubt about it. The McLaren drivers are indeed the team to beat this season, finishing second and third respectively. Lewis Hamilton of Ferrari came fourth in that one. Alex Albon of Williams, of course, finishing fifth right there. All right, away from the world of Formula One, let's touch on the Italian Open. Talking about the world of tennis, the weekend served us with interesting action in the world of tennis. Of course, in Rome, yes, on Saturday, Paolini, home favorite, the home girl herself, won the singles women's title. And of course, she did that against Coco Gauff, of course, winning that one. Fantastic one for Paolini, emerging champion on her home soil. But that wasn't the case in the male category decided yesterday, as Carlos Alcaraz won his maiden title in Rome following his win over home favorite Jannik Sinner and world number one. Of course, it was a two-straight set victory for Carlos Alcaraz, winning 7-6 and of course 6-1 respectively. Congratulations to Carlos Alcaraz. What a way to prepare for the French Open. Well, away from the world of tennis, quickly, let's touch on the NBA playoffs. Of course, it ended over yesterday evening when it comes to the Western Conference semifinals, as the OKC Thunders won Game 7 of their series against the Denver Nuggets, 125 to 93 points to emerge 4-3 victors over the Denver Nuggets. Now, let's take a look at the entire playoff bracket this morning. Now, in the Western Conference, OKC Thunder will take on the Minnesota Timberwolves in the conference finals this week. And of course, in the Eastern finals also, it's the Indiana Pacers versus the New York Knicks. Later on this week also, they will start their own best of 7 series in that particular playoffs. Of course, we'll continue to bring you up to speed as far as that is concerned on this particular show on the Dominion Television, of course, on all our sports bulletin. Now, away from the world of NBA this morning, let's talk football, as Crystal Palace on Saturday won the Emirates FA Cup, courtesy of a 1-0 victory over Manchester City. Eberechi Eze scoring the only goal for Crystal Palace in that particular game that, of course, sent shocks into the spine of many football fans. Now, that game was supposed to be a redemption or consolation for Manchester City, but it ended up being a very terrible one for them. A disaster for Manchester City. Let's take a look at what it looks like, the stats looks like on the day. Goals, of course, Crystal Palace won that one by a single goal. They recorded just 7 shots, while City recorded 23 shots. Surprise, right? Of course, City had 6 shots on target, while Crystal Palace had just 2 on target. Well, what a game we saw there. Now, away from that, let's talk about the Premier League. Matches were also played at the weekend. Then, most importantly, let's talk about the race for a place in the Champions League. Now, Liverpool, of course, they are in the Champions League already. They are the winners of the Premier League. And Arsenal, at the weekend, courtesy of their 1-0 victory over Newcastle United, sealed a place in the Champions League next season. Now, we need 3 more teams to join Liverpool and Arsenal. There's Newcastle United in 3rd, Chelsea 4th, Aston Villa 5th, Manchester City 6th, and Nottingham Forest 7. Let me inform that the third to the 7th place teams are only they're only separated by a single point. So it's all to play for on the final day to determine the three teams that will join Liverpool and Arsenal in the Champions League. So just one match day to go, and it's all to play for in the Premier League. Of course, we can't wait. All the games will be played simultaneously, so it's winner takes all this coming weekend in the Premier League as we look to determine who eventually, of course, pick up the remaining tickets for the Champions League of football. Now, away from that, this morning, let's talk about the La Liga. Matches were also played at the weekend in the La Liga. Number of interesting matches. Then it was match day 37, which means just one match day to go in the Spanish La Liga. And of course, Barcelona already crowned champions in that one. Let's take a look at the La Liga table this morning. Following the games we saw at the weekend. Of course, the La Liga table there, you have the FC Barcelona, very comfortable there right now. They are the title champions. Real Madrid, also the Atletico Madrid, Athletic Club, Villarreal, Betis, all of those teams already are good this season. Just one round of games to go this season. Away from Spain, let's go to the Italian Serie A this morning, where matches were equally played. Inter Milan don't look like a team that really wants to win the title this season. Napoli just need a point, yes, to be crowned champion. So they need to win or at least pick up a point in their last round of game. It was match day 37 in the Italian Serie A at the weekend. Let's take a look at the table in the Italian Serie A this morning, and there you have the table. Napoli right there, Inter Milan second, Atalanta right there, Juventus there. But not a very good news coming from AC Milan this morning. As AC Milan, as you can see on your screen, they are ninth on the table. It was confirmed at the weekend that they will not play European football next season. Not a good news for fans of AC Milan worldwide. Something needs to be done. One of the biggest and best teams when it comes to Italian football won't be playing European football next season. Of course, we pray and of course we hope that they will bounce back as soon as possible. Away from, yes, there you have it on your screen. Milan eliminated from European football next season, and you can see how disappointed the boys are. Of course, it's a Tomori right there, and of course a lot of quality players at AC Milan, and your guess is as good as mine. Some of them might just be thinking of leaving the club at this moment. Now, away from the Italian Serie A, let's talk about the German Bundesliga as it ended at the weekend in the German Bundesliga. The 2024-2025 season has ended. Bayern Munich crowned champions with 82 points, followed by Bayer Leverkusen with 69 points. We also have Eintracht Frankfurt and, of course, Borussia Dortmund. Those four teams will be representing Germany in the Champions League next season. Well, for Europa League, there you have Freiburg right there. And, of course, we also have Mainz representing in the Conference League. And, of course, that was how it ended in the Bundesliga. So, till next season for Bundesliga, of course, we wish Bayer Leverkusen all the best. Our own man is right there. Of course, you know him, the one who loves to crack jokes a lot. Victor Boniface, we wish him all the best come next season. Hopefully next season, they will get their title back from Bayern Munich. Let's quickly move to the French Ligue 1, where it all ended also in the French Ligue 1 at the weekend, with Paris Saint-Germain, of course, finished the season unbeaten. Marseille, Monaco, all of the teams made it there. Now, quick one, let's go straight to Turkey before I leave this morning to celebrate one of Nigeria's finest footballers, that's Victor Osimhen. At the weekend, he won the Turkish Super League title for his club. 2 trophies already in just one season. The Turkish Cup and the Turkish Super League title. Congratulations to Victor Osimhen. And that's sports this morning. Back to Samson and Parts.
Welcome to Trend Watch on Dominion Television. This is still Daybreak Live, and this is your channel of choice where inspiration meets entertainment. All right, on Trend Watch this morning, I won't be doing this alone. I also have in the studio with me, Pat Aito.
Yes, Samson, thank you so much. Well, indeed, I'm so happy that we actually wanted to start on this note. I mean, showing the video of Yul Edochie and the wife.
And Judy Austin. You know, they're expecting their third child together, and then the fact that they are actually having a photo shoot. I mean, it's something amazing, actually. But then he has received a lot of backlash of late as regards, you know, his other marriage, which ended with May Edochie, and the fact that they lost their first child, the boy, and then now back to Judy Austin, first, second, and third child. And then this seems to be something really interesting because they went all out to have, you know, something really, a photo shoot.
Well, there are questions I always I always ask myself, is there any need for this? They're not newly married couples and they're having this. Well, I really don't know about it, so
you know, sometimes you just have to spice it up a little bit. I think that is what they are doing.
They're spicing
putting
it
a little
up.
bit spice on it so that people can actually say, look, you know, sometimes when you find love, you just have to express it. There are ways, there are some times when you cannot actually hide love. When you find love, you express it. That's what he's doing too.
Oh, something is actually speaking from the book of love this morning.
Well, I think that's what it is. It is what it is.
All right. Well, that is on that. And of course, we have this, still talking about love. And Davido pens a heartfelt tribute to his manager, Asa, after he tied the knot with his partner, Leona.
I think that was an epistle, because if you looked at what he actually wrote, it was very, very long. I think it's an important one to also note that sometimes when you have friends who have been loyal to you for a long time, it is actually important to find, you know, a little bit of time to actually express it.
In fact, I watched the video where the video was actually dressing his manager up, like, okay, this one looks good on you. Okay, have this, have this. I was just laughing like, wow.
And there was also a place where the video said Asa Asika managed him for 14 good years and see where he is today. So meaning that he's giving credit to Asa Asika for doing what he has actually done for him. So it's a symbiotic relationship. If you help me, I help you too.
Okay, so I'm helping you now.
Now, because there are also comments when it comes to Asa Asika. There are comments by people, and then you begin to wonder what exactly, you know, is going on here. But hey, when it comes to friendship and coming to loyalty, I think it's an important one to also recognize that.
I mean, there are some comments here. We have one from me_JKids Nigeria. Even if AI was used, it represents a true brotherly feelings. No, I think it's beautiful.
Beautiful. You know, it's just that even if he adopted AI, the fact that he has actually expressed himself,
so,
at least you can't just tell AI to write something without you putting a prompt. You must tell AI what to write. So if AI has actually done that, well, we are going to take it as you have actually done.
And also we have this Nono_was saying a man pens down a tribute to his brother and the bone of contention is whether he's original author or
ChatGPT. That's appalling. But
well,
hey, actually it's appalling because it's the question of what he used.
Even if you ask ChatGPT to help you if that person has not been good to you,
ChatGPT will actually work on instructions. So it means that he meant what he was actually trying to write. And then there's another comment here that says, honestly, if you tell me it's Davido, I can never see you in the same light again. He's so sweet and cheerful. I think that's has always been his hallmark. He's always everywhere. That's why they say he's too accessible for people. You find him almost everywhere and people have access.
Well, I think it's just in the family. It runs in the family.
It runs in the family, actually, because if you look at, you know, the governor too of Osun State is also like that. If you look at B-Red, who is also his cousin, is like that too. So it means that it's a family. It's a family thing.
Yes.
Right.
So away from that, we have the swan singer Tiwa Savage ex-husband Tilbils shares his thoughts and as he welcomes a teenage daughter's boyfriend.
He actually has failed to leave the scene. when it comes to the news. His relevance is still there when it comes to you always being in the news. But this particular one, the question is, what concerns an average Nigerian with your daughter's boyfriend coming to see you at home?
Oh,
And,
well,
I mean,
let me just read what he said. He said, I am very proud to welcome my daughter's boyfriend to my home at 18, then caging her to be rebellious. I'm so proud to teach her to be with an excellent black young man with honors, respectful, loving from a good two-parent home. So what does that mean?
well, also
Good
there's
two-parents home.
the idea is actually is doing the modern parenting. You know, back in the days you cannot do that, but it has evolved, and then the fact that we now have the Gen Zs who actually have a way of doing their thing.
Their thing,
I think
without letting their parents know.
you must find a way to accommodate them so that you won't regret actually being too hostile or being too harsh to them.
Yeah.
So I think he has a very good approach, but bringing it to social media for me,
So some
I think
people are saying,
that's a no-no.
What is their own way that?
There was a comment that said, what if the girl actually has another boyfriend, and then, hey, you have
It's
actually
not
posted
true.
on social media, how do you want her to actually explain, you know, to the other boyfriend? Well, you go explain, Taya, you continue to explain and explain.
Well,
until get it
we
right.
have a comment made to fit. Your daughter, your business, you brought it online.
So, yeah, that's what I said earlier. I think that should not be on social media. It's your thing, it's your family thing. I think you should do it in the family and just keep it there. Because actually, broadcasting this, putting this on social media actually endangers the child the more. So, well, maybe one of these days, people will actually learn that they don't post everything on social media.
Okay.
Also, there's another comment that says, what if the girl, they date another guy low-key, see as a cast stamp? You know, it's there now. Actually, it's original casting. You know, you might just have someone who actually likes you, and because someone has actually put it there on social media. There used to be a time when, you know, when you're in love, you put it on Facebook. So suppose Pataito is in a relationship with Michael.
It's not Michael, it's with something.
But then at the point people stopped doing it because
that.
it's, for me, it actually put it out there. But then maybe T-Bills is actually bringing something different to what we used
I
to
think
see.
the last comment here is from Onyechi_favor saying, what if the relationship does not work out? What people would start counting boyfriend for your daughter?
Well,
and my point is that not everything should be brought to social media.
Well, as you rightly said, this is one. Maybe we'll have 2 or 3, but then as it stands, it is still one right now. Until it is time for people to start counting, maybe that will be the case. But then, away from there, I think that wraps up Trend Watch on Daybreak Live this morning. It has been a wonderful session with you all. Thank you for being a part of our morning. And of course, thank you for spending your money with us on this dial. Dominion Television, your channel of choice, where inspiration meets entertainment. But then, we have to go today.
Yes, we have to go.
We have to go.
All right, this is where we'll be saying our BYA on the program Daybreak Live on Dominion Television. Do well to join us tomorrow for another fresh edition of the program. I'm saying BYA Pat Aito.
All right, from this end, I will say this is another Monday. Our champions are not those who actually quit. They are those who refuse to quit until they made it. All right, today is another Monday to go afresh, try to do it different way and achieve a different positive result. Thank you for being a part of Morning this morning. Samson Balogun is my name. Until tomorrow, bye for now.
Someone told me that at the last count, there are about 53 radio stations within the broadcast landscape alone. And And I said, yes, why not? We are here to make a difference. I said something yesterday, I was told when I was very young, that I didn't know be Latin Yoifi. Which means that in the committee of matters, the platinum stands top. It's top notch. You cannot compare the platinum to gold, to silver, to brass, or to anything. So Dominion is here to dominate in practical terms.